A millionaire witnesses a poor woman being humiliated at a hotel and decides to take action without warning. What seemed like a routine day reveals a silent injustice that has lasted for years in plain sight. When he discovers the truth behind the humiliations, the destiny of that place changes forever. Before we continue, subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments which city you are watching us from. The Royal Crest Plaza, located in Manhattan's Upper East Side, was a place where luxury whispered in every detail. It attracted entrepreneurs and celebrities willing to pay dearly for the illusion of perfection. And it worked perfectly, but not by chance. Gabrielle Miller woke up at 5 in the morning. From her small apartment in Staten Island to the hotel was a 2-hour journey, a bus, the ferry, and a subway line. She arrived at 7 o'clock sharp, wearing a discreet, almost austere uniform. Nothing that would draw attention. Gabrielle was not meant to be noticed. She was supposed to be there, always available, always efficient, but never truly seen. She was a concierge. But what she did went far beyond that. She resolved crises before they exploded. She calmed furious guests. She found sold-out tickets and impossible reservations. She knew the names, preferences, and quirks of every client. It was she who kept the machine running while the front desk stumbled over itself. But no one seemed to notice. To the manager, Marcus V. Sterling, Gabrielle was just a part of the machinery, useful as long as she stayed in her designated place. A very small place. On that Thursday, foreign executives arrived early and their rooms weren't ready. A man in a blue suit gestured irritably. Gabrielle approached calmly, greeted them in perfect English, and within 5 minutes had organized everything. Coffee in the lounge, spa access, and rooms ready in 1 hour. The crisis dissolved. When everything calmed down, Marcus Sterling emerged from the elevator, looking impeccable. He looked at Gabrielle with superiority. "Gabrielle, you weren't hired to solve front desk problems. Your job is to open doors. Leave the decisions to those with the proper competence." The sentence was low but firm, dripping with venom. Around them, some staff members looked away. Gabrielle swallowed her anger. She needed that job. "Understood, Mr. Sterling. 7 years in that hotel. 7 years being treated like a shadow, waiting for recognition that never came. What came instead were humiliations disguised as hierarchy." In the afternoon, she saw a different man, sitting in an armchair, observing everything with unusual attention. Tall, in his mid-40s, with touches of grey in his hair, wearing expensive clothes without ostentation. He watched her as she worked. When their eyes met, Gabrielle felt something different. It wasn't an evaluation. It was recognition. That night in the locker room, she found a note in her locker, feminine handwriting. "Be careful with who you think you are. Some people were born to serve and others to lead. Don't confuse the roles." Gabrielle recognized that handwriting. Patricia Thorne, the service supervisor, ambitious, she had started 2 years after Gabrielle, but was already in a leadership position. Patricia stepped on others to climb the ladder. She crumpled the note, but the words echoed. As she left, she stopped before the revolving doors. What if I never came back? The idea scared her, but it brought a strange relief. She was tired of being invisible, tired of being small. Maybe it was time to leave, to open a door for herself. Gabrielle left with the decision almost made. Almost, because there was still a stubborn hope. But she didn't know that someone was paying attention, and that this attention would change everything. The next morning, Gabrielle arrived with a resignation letter in her bag. Written during the night, caught between the fear of having no income and the need to reclaim her dignity. The paper was there, folded, waiting, but she still didn't know if she would have the courage. Around 11, Marcus Sterling called her. His tone was serious. "Gabrielle, the weekly report you submitted is incomplete. Information is missing. This is a grave error." Gabrielle frowned. She had checked that report 3 times. Everything was there. "With all due respect, Mr. Sterling, I reviewed it several times. It was complete when I sent it." Patricia, leaning against the desk, crossed her arms. "Gabrielle, maybe you're just tired. Sometimes we think we did everything right, but in the rush, we make mistakes." "It wasn't a mistake," Gabrielle insisted, sensing the trap. "I delivered it complete." Marcus showed her the printed document. There were blank fields. incomplete data. Gabrielle felt the floor vanish beneath her. That was not what she had sent. I'll overlook it this time, but it can't happen again. An error like this compromises the entire operation. She wanted to scream. She wanted to say it was a lie, but she knew it wouldn't matter. She was alone. Yes, Mr. Sterling. In the restroom, she took a deep breath. They were sabotaging her work, building a history of failures to justify her firing, or worse, to make her quit, broken. But something had changed. Maybe it was the cruel note, maybe the exhaustion, or maybe that look. The look from the man in the armchair. She decided to investigate. She started noting times, reviewing emails, and saving copies of documents. If they were playing dirty, she needed proof. In the afternoon, the man was in the same spot. She approached him. "Can I help you, sir?" He smiled. "Recognition, not seduction. How long have you worked here?" 7 years. "And have you always been treated like this?" Gabrielle felt a tightness in her chest. "Like what?" "As if you were invisible." The word hit like a bomb. Gabrielle looked away, uncomfortable. "I'm just doing my job." "I know, and you do it very well, but it seems no one notices, or worse, they notice and ignore it on purpose." There was truth in those words, and truth, spoken aloud, hurts differently. "Excuse me, I need to get back," she said, pulling away before he could respond. But for the rest of the day, she couldn't get that conversation out of her head. Who was that man? Why was he paying attention? And why, for the first time in so long, did she feel seen? At night, she went to the outdoor garden. She needed to breathe. The letter was still in her bag, but now it seemed like too easy a solution. Would running away solve it? Or would it be just another way to disappear? Thinking of leaving? Gabrielle opened her eyes and saw the man there. He didn't come too close, respecting her space. "Why do you want to know?" she asked, too tired to be polite. "Because I recognize someone on the verge of giving up, and I think it would be a waste." Gabrielle let out a bitter laugh. "You don't know me." "No, but I know places like this. I know people like your manager, and I know women like you, competent, dedicated, and completely ignored." Gabrielle stared at him. There was something about him that was unsettling. It wasn't pity, it was respect. "If you came to save me, you're wasting your time," she said, standing up. "I didn't come to save anyone. I came to observe. And what I saw was someone who is worth much more than this place offers." Gabrielle felt a lump in her throat. She wasn't going to cry. Not here. She turned to leave, but before she did, she asked, "What is your name?" He smiled. "Raphael. Raphael Montgomery," and he left, leaving Gabrielle alone with a strange sensation in her chest. For the first time in a long time, someone had told her she was worth something. And for the first time, she almost believed it. The following days were a roller coaster. Gabrielle began documenting everything, saving copies of emails, taking photos of reports, noting timestamps. She was building a silent archive against the trap that was closing in. The more she observed, the more she realized how calculated it all was. Patricia became bolder. She made acidic comments in public, questioned Gabrielle's decisions, and created embarrassing situations, all disguised as professional concern, but with just enough venom to undermine any confidence. On a rainy Friday morning, an important guest was waiting for her in the lobby. Mr. Henderson, a businessman who stayed monthly, was visibly irritated. "Gabrielle, I requested my car for 8 o'clock. It's 8:15. This has never happened before." She felt her heart race. She was certain she had confirmed it the day before. She ran to the system. The record was there, but the time was wrong. 9, not 8. Someone had altered it. "Mr. Henderson, I sincerely apologize. There was a system error. I will resolve this immediately." In 5 minutes, she secured an executive car from another company. Mr. Henderson left annoyed but taken care of. When she returned, Patricia was there, smiling. "System error, Gabrielle, or your error?" "It was the system. I checked yesterday and it was correct." Patricia tilted her head. "You know, sometimes we get so tired that we start seeing things as they aren't. Maybe you need a rest." Gabrielle clenched her fists but kept her face neutral. Raphael continued to appear, never invasive but always present. One afternoon he waited for her after she resolved a guest emergency. "Gabrielle, can we talk? Just for a minute." They went to a private area. "You are being sabotaged," Raphael said bluntly. I know. And do you know by whom? She nodded. Patricia and Marcus Sterling. They want to force me out. Why are you still here? The question was simple but heavy. Because I need this job. Because if I leave now, I'll sink. And because a part of me still believes I can change this. Raphael looked at her intensely. You can't change a system designed to keep you small. Not alone. So what do I do? Stop accepting it. Stop swallowing it. Stop believing you deserve this. The words echoed like a scream she had suppressed for years. It's easy to say when you don't need the money at the end of the month. You're right, but money doesn't buy dignity, Gabrielle, and you are selling yours far too cheap. That sentence was a punch. She wanted to snap back, but she knew Raphael was right. She was giving up on herself a little bit every day. I need to get back to work. Before she left, Raphael lightly touched her arm. You aren't invisible, Gabrielle. I see you, and if I can, other people can too, including yourself. Gabrielle left with a racing heart and a confused mind. Who was this man? Why did he care? And why was she starting to trust him? That night, she was called to Marcus Sterling's office. She found him, Patricia, and Sylvia Ross from HR. Gabrielle, we received a formal complaint from Mr. Henderson. This is the third incident in 2 weeks. We need to re-evaluate your position. Gabrielle felt her blood run cold. May I defend myself? Sylvia looked up. Of course, these incidents were not my mistakes. My records were altered. I have copies that prove it. Marcus arched an eyebrow. Are you suggesting someone is sabotaging you? I am stating it. A heavy silence followed. Patricia let out a short laugh. Gabrielle, that sounds paranoid, don't you think? Sylvia said, her tone trying to be conciliatory but sounding condescending. Gabrielle realized there was no room for the truth there, only for the game. And she was losing. I can bring the evidence tomorrow. Marcus nodded. Bring it. But until then, you are suspended. Return on Monday. Gabrielle left with trembling legs and a broken heart, not because of the suspension, but because she knew nothing she said would matter. They had already decided. She was a disposable part. As she crossed the lobby, she saw Raphael sitting in his usual armchair. He saw her too, and in that look Gabrielle found certainty, the certainty that she wasn't alone, and that maybe there was still a chance to turn the game around. Gabrielle spent the weekend in emotional suspension. It wasn't sadness, it was painful clarity. She had dedicated 7 years to a place that was never going to recognize her. She had accepted crumbs while delivering banquets. Now suspended and humiliated, she had 2 choices. Walk out with her head down or fight for something that might not even be worth it. On Saturday, she received a message from an unknown number. Gabrielle, it's Raphael. I got your contact from the front desk. I know this might seem invasive, but I need to talk to you, not about the hotel, about you. Can we meet? The rational part of her screamed to ignore it. The emotional part, tired of always being rational, replied yes. They met at a discreet cafe in Greenwich Village, far from the hotel. Raphael arrived looking different. A simple shirt, jeans, more accessible, more real. Thank you for coming. I don't know why I came, but I thought I owed you a conversation. You don't owe me anything, but I'm glad you accepted. Silence. Then Raphael spoke. I know who you are, not just from what I saw, but because I wanted to know. I asked about you. I talked to staff, and I discovered someone who keeps that place running while taking the blame for everything that goes wrong. Someone who is afraid to leave because she believes she won't find anything better. But you are mistaken. Gabrielle looked away. You don't know what it's like to wake up without certainty. You don't know what it's like to depend on a salary that barely pays the bills. You're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to be underestimated. I know what it's like to fight for respect in places that want you small. And I know how to recognize when someone is about to give up on their own story. And what do you want me to do? Should I just leave and do what? You already are someone, Gabrielle. You already do everything a manager does. You resolve crises, manage people, anticipate problems. The difference is you do it without the title, without the recognition, without a fair salary. That isn't a lack of competence. It's exploitation. The words hit like a bombshell. Even if you're right, what does that change? It changes everything. Because when you understand that the problem isn't you, you stop accepting the unacceptable. Gabrielle looked at him, really looked at him. "I'm exhausted, Raphael. Exhausted of fighting alone." He reached out and lightly touched her hand. "Then stop fighting alone." The touch carried an electric current. Gabrielle felt something inside her break. It wasn't weakness, it was permission. Permission to be human, to be vulnerable, to be seen. They talked for hours. Raphael shared that he was an entrepreneur, had businesses in different sectors, and traveled a lot. He didn't go into details, and Gabrielle didn't push. What mattered was that there, she wasn't an invisible employee. She was a woman being heard. When they left, it was getting dark. Before they said goodbye, he held her hand. "Gabrielle, you're confused. You don't know me well, but I need you to know you aren't alone, and Monday when you return you'll understand why." Monday morning, Gabrielle wore her best blazer. When she arrived, the lobby was different. There was strange movement, employees whispering. She went straight to Marcus's office but was stopped. "Mr. Sterling is in an important meeting. You'll have to wait." She waited an hour, until the door opened. Marcus stepped out, his face pale and his gaze lost. Behind him was Raphael. Gabrielle felt the floor vanish. Raphael was there with a completely different posture. He was no longer the guest. He was someone with authority, with power. "Gabrielle, could you come in, please?" Raphael said, his voice serene but firm. She entered. She found Sylvia, Patricia with a tense face, and 3 unknown men in suits. Raphael went to her. "Gabrielle, my name is Raphael A. Montgomery, and I am the new owner of the Royal Crest Plaza." Absolute silence. Gabrielle felt the world stop. Raphael continued, "For the past 15 days I have been here observing, analyzing processes, listening to employees, identifying problems. I found an operation sustained by fear, manipulation, and abuse of power. I found a brilliant employee being sabotaged by superiors, threatened by her competence. And I found a manager who built a kingdom based on humiliation." Marcus tried to speak. Raphael raised his hand. "You are dismissed, Mr. Sterling. And you as well, Miss Thorne. Your terminations will be formalized today." Patricia tried to protest. One of the men escorted her to the door. Marcus left defeated. Gabrielle was in shock. Raphael turned to her. "Gabrielle, I know you have proof of what you suffered, and I want you to present it to the HR team, but before that I have something to offer you." She stared at him, speechless. "I want you to take over as General Manager of Operations, with autonomy, authority, and the recognition you have always deserved." The room spun. Tears came, not of sadness, of relief, of justice, of a new beginning. "Did you do this for me?" Raphael smiled. "I did it for justice, but I won't deny that you were the reason I paid attention. And I'm glad I did." Gabrielle looked at him, at the man who saw her when no one else would. And for the first time in 7 years, she felt she no longer needed to open doors for others, because someone finally had opened one for her. Gabrielle didn't accept immediately, not because she didn't want to, but because she needed to be sure it wasn't a favor, it wasn't charity, it wasn't a promotion born of romance or pity. She demanded time to think. Raphael agreed. "You have until tomorrow, but know that this offer isn't a gift. It's recognition of everything you already do, and that was never valued." Gabrielle left with her head spinning. The news spread through the hotel like wildfire. Employees looked at her with curiosity, some with respect, others with envy. But Gabrielle didn't care. For the first time, she wasn't worried about what they thought of her. That night, alone in Staten Island, she looked out the window. 7 years of invisibility, 7 years opening doors for others while her own remained locked. And now someone had not only opened the door but offered her the key, but there was Raphael, and that was the part that scared her most. If she accepted, her life would intertwine with his irrevocably, and she didn't know if she could trust someone with that much power. The next morning, she sought out Raphael. "I accept, but on conditions." Raphael smiled. "I'm listening. I want total autonomy to restructure the team. I want authority to implement changes, and I want transparency. If I take this position, it's because I deserve it, not because you and I have... whatever this is." Raphael stood up and walked toward her. "I offered you this position because you are the most competent person I've seen in this hotel. What happened between us doesn't change that, but I also won't pretend I don't feel anything. So let's do this. You take the job, do the work you should have always been doing, and later, when you're comfortable, we'll talk about the rest. No pressure. It's a deal. The first few days were intense. Gabrielle took over and began reorganizing everything. She talked to every employee, heard complaints and mapped out problems. She discovered she wasn't the only one suffering. There was an entire system of abuse, favoritism, and injustice. She implemented quick changes, fair shifts, anonymous reporting channels, training, and feedback meetings. She replaced 3 supervisors who followed Patricia's methods. She promoted competent, stagnant employees. Gradually, the hotel began to breathe differently. The results appeared. Guest reviews improved. The team became engaged. Processes flowed better. Gabrielle, for the first time, felt like she was in the right place, but it wasn't easy. There was resistance. People who didn't accept the changes, those who whispered that she was only there because she was having an affair with the owner. Gabrielle heard the comments, felt the sting, but didn't back down, because she knew it wasn't true. And for anyone who doubted, they only had to look at the numbers. Raphael maintained a professional distance. He appeared for strategic meetings, reviewed reports, and approved investments, but he never interfered in her decisions. And that made all the difference. Gabrielle needed to prove mainly to herself that she was capable, that she deserved to be there. But at night, they talked, sometimes by message, sometimes in person, at discreet meetings outside the hotel. It wasn't dating, not yet. It was a careful approach, full of respect and the fear of ruining what was being built. On one of those nights, at the cafe in Greenwich Village, Gabrielle spoke about the challenges of management. Raphael spoke about his other businesses, about the loneliness of always being in transit, about the fatigue of being seen only for what he had, never for who he was. Do you know what caught my attention most? It wasn't just the competence, it was the dignity. Even while being humiliated, you didn't lose your essence. You kept doing the right thing, and that is rare. Gabrielle smiled. I almost lost it. I almost gave up. If you hadn't appeared, Raphael finished for her, you would have found another way. Because people like you don't disappear. They just need the right push. They sat in silence, their gazes connected. In that moment, Gabrielle knew. It was more than attraction. It was mutual recognition. A meeting of equals. Weeks passed. Gabrielle transformed the hotel. The changes were visible. The team worked better. Guests were satisfied. Profits increased. When Raphael presented the quarterly results to the investors, Gabrielle's name was mentioned with high praise. It was in that moment she realized she had proven it, to the hotel, to the team, to Raphael, and most importantly, to herself. That night, after the meeting, Raphael found her in the parking lot. Gabrielle, I can't keep pretending this is just professional. I admire you as a professional, but I want you as a woman, and I can't separate the two anymore. Gabrielle felt her heart race. She couldn't either. Raphael, I needed to be sure I was here because of my work. I needed to know it wasn't a favor, it wasn't pity, it wasn't a romance. And now I know, now I can. She didn't finish. He stepped closer, held her face and kissed her. It wasn't a shy kiss, it was a kiss of certainty, of surrender, of promise. When they pulled apart, Gabrielle was breathless, but for the first time in a long time, she was complete. Not because Raphael completed her, but because she had allowed herself to be whole, professional and woman, strong and vulnerable, competent and passionate. There in that parking lot, under the dim lights of the New York night, Gabrielle understood that her story wasn't about being saved. It was about recognizing herself, and about finding someone who saw her exactly as she was, sufficient. She always had been. 3 months later, the Royal Crest Plaza was a different place, not in structure, but in essence. The team worked with mutual respect. Processes were clear, promotions were fair, and Gabrielle was in command, not as an imposter waiting to be discovered, but as someone who belonged, because she had built it, because she had earned it. Raphael remained the owner, but divided his time between the hotel and other investments. They maintained an impeccable professional relationship during working hours. In meetings, Gabrielle presented results, proposed changes, and challenged decisions when necessary. And Raphael supported her, not as a protector, but as a partner who trusted her work. But outside the hotel, they were something else. Two adults who had chosen to be together without rush, without drama, without needing to prove anything. Quiet dinners, deep conversations, comfortable silences. A relationship that wasn't a fairy tale but was real, and that was better. Gabrielle still lived in Staten Island. She refused Raphael's offer to move to a closer apartment that he would pay for. She needed to build her independence with her own money. And now, with a fair salary, she was saving to buy her own apartment, earned by her. One morning, while reviewing schedules, she received a visit from Rachel, a new employee recently promoted to supervisor. She was nervous. "Gabrielle, can I talk to you?" "Of course. Sit down." The young woman sat, fidgeting with her hands. "I wanted to thank you for the opportunity. I was in the same position for 5 years, always doing more, never recognized. When you promoted me, I thought it was a mistake." Gabrielle smiled. "It wasn't a mistake. You are competent, and competence deserves recognition. Always." After Rachel left, Gabrielle sat alone, looking out the window. She remembered what it was like to be on the other side, to be invisible. She realized her struggle wasn't in vain, not just because she won, but because now she could open doors for others. She could be for someone what no one was for her. That afternoon, Raphael appeared. After an investor meeting, he stopped by her office. "Do you have a minute?" "For you, always." They went to the rooftop, a quiet place with a view of the city. Raphael held her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Gabrielle, when I bought this hotel, it was a business decision. I saw potential. I saw an operation that could be better. But I didn't expect to find you. I didn't expect to find someone who made me want to be better too." She squeezed his hand. "Raphael, you didn't save me. You saw me. And that made a difference. But the one who saved me was myself. When I decided not to accept humiliation anymore, when I decided to fight for what I deserved," he smiled. "I know. And that's why I love you. Not for the person I helped you become, but for the person you always were, and who finally found the space to exist." It was the first time he had said it, and Gabrielle realized she felt it too. It wasn't a sweeping soap opera passion. It was a love built on respect, admiration, and partnership. "I love you too, but I need you to understand one thing. I won't be a woman who lives in a man's shadow. I won't be a trophy wife or a discreet companion. If this becomes something more serious, I remain Gabrielle Miller, general manager of this hotel, who works, decides, fails, succeeds, and grows. That is not negotiable." Raphael pulled her close. "I don't want you any other way. I want the woman who fights with me in meetings when she thinks I'm wrong. I want the woman who doesn't accept less than she deserves. I want all of you." They kissed there on the rooftop while New York breathed around them. Gabrielle felt that she was finally where she was meant to be, not because someone put her there, but because she fought to arrive. 6 months passed. The hotel won awards. Gabrielle was invited to give talks on management. Her story inspired other women not to accept less. She, who was once invisible, was now seen. Not as a saved victim, but as a woman who refused to disappear. Raphael proposed to her at a simple dinner, without spotlights, just the two of them. Gabrielle said yes, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to build a life with him. The following week, in the hotel lobby, she observed the movement, and there, in the middle of it all, was a young employee opening a door, organizing luggage, resolving problems. Gabrielle watched her and saw herself years ago. She approached. "What is your name?" The young woman was startled. "Faith, Ma'am." "Faith, I've seen the work you're doing. I've seen how you resolve problems before they become a crisis. I've seen your dedication. It doesn't go unnoticed. Next week I want to talk to you about a growth opportunity. You have potential, and potential deserves space." The girl's eyes brightened. "Thank you, ma'am." "Thank you so much," Gabrielle smiled. "Don't thank me. Just don't let anyone convince you that you are invisible. Because you aren't. No one is." That night, as she touched the revolving door she had opened so many times, Gabrielle stopped. She looked back at the illuminated lobby, at the hotel that was no longer a prison but a conquest, and she understood that her story was never about being a passing servant. It was about learning that when someone refuses to accept humiliation as their destiny, when someone decides they deserve more, no door remains closed forever. Because the key was always with her. It was always in her hands, she just had to have the courage to use it. And Gabrielle used it. And finally, she was free. If you believe that destiny can be rewritten, that love can bloom where it's least expected, and that even the greatest challenges can be overcome by those who cross paths in opposite worlds, then my stories have something to tell you. Come, dive into these tales of lives that meet and transform. The best is yet to come. And who knows, maybe you'll find yourself in one of them. I've been telling stories for a few years now, and it's a pleasure to share every chapter and every emotion with you. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave in the comments the city you are listening to these narratives from. I'd love to know where you are from and how my words reach you. Until next time.